make no friends in the pits and you take no prisoners. 1 minute you're up $500,000 in soybeans and the next, boom, your kids don't go to college and they've repossessed your Bentley. Are you with me?
The revolution starts now.
We have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Turn those machines back on!
And we have to start by building a wall, a big, beautiful, powerful wall.
Show me the money!
You are fake news.
Oh, good for you. And how was it?
I don't know when they decided that they wanted to make a virtue out of selfishness.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on Earth.
Well, this is the revolution here, live at Lake Effect Radio, streaming live at lakeeffectradio.com .org/studio. That would be a huge problem if I go and say .com, because people wouldn't be able to find us. So, we're here with Jonathan Foster. Why I get my tongues sort of twisted around. So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Jeremiah. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Definitely like your stuff. All your new album, it's all good stuff, man.
Oh, thank you very much. I
Right,
appreciate that.
Yeah, right now we have everything since, what was that, back in fall that you sent us over? We have all that in the rotation right now.
Oh, outstanding. Yeah, the new album just came out in June of last year called Lantern Shade. And, well, thanks for the support and playing the tunes. It's awesome.
Yeah. Quite a few people. Because when we sort of go and we throw things in a rotation in front of it, we sort of voice in like who it is and then the song title. And I don't know if they were sort of missing. We actually had like 5 people throughout the week that sort of just stopped passive. Well, hey, what's this playing? And who is it? And, what's the song title? So I don't know if they sort of missed it, but you sort of getting some fans here.
Oh, right on.
On this side of this side of the country. That was almost another little brain fart there. Yeah. Sort of that thing, being up to, or sort of early in that. Every once in a while my brain sort of just twists words and all that stuff around.
It's a good week for that with the daylight savings change and, still being early in the week.
No, it's true in that. But we'll sort of get more into the album. But we'll sort of start off a little bit sort of about you. So what first got you into saying, I want to go and be a musician?
Yeah, I mean, my earliest memories are of listening to music and I grew up a pretty devout just fan, especially listening to songs on the radio and my parents' record collection. They definitely instilled their love of 60s, 70s, 80s rock and roll into me as a child. And I didn't play a lot of music growing up, but I did sing a lot, both in school and for fun. And, so just kind of the joy of what music brings is what, I told myself, I'm going to do that someday. And it took a while, but I started writing as a late teenager and learning the guitar as well. And I really haven't stopped writing songs since then. And, it's morphed into from just a love of music into a hobby, into pretty much a full-time gig in the last handful of years as well. And so it's just a joy to both create and perform and share music. It makes me feel good, and it tends to make other people feel good as well.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, it's like even like when I was sort of growing up, my mother sort of installed like the 60s, 70s, 80s music and that. So definitely sort of can relate there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because that led me on to being a trombone player, then bass guitar and all that.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first instrument was trumpet in 8th grade, and that didn't take too long for me. I wasn't good at it.
No, I get it. It's like me at first when I said, well, I want to sort of play instrument. The first instrument I ever sort of tried was, the trumpet. In the no, me and that didn't even gel for just trying it and seeing if I wanted to play it. So, no, I can completely understand that. It's just a mutual feeling in between you, me, and the trumpet.
I like it.
So, but that's funny how I was going to actually ask you right after this of what was your first instrument. So we sort of got that out of the way.
Yeah, trumpet, and then classical guitar was my first guitar.
Oh, cool.
The nylon strings.
Oh.
And so that kind of steered me a little more into more gentler sound and finger picking. And so, I still I primarily play steel string, 6-string guitar, acoustic guitar these days, but there's still some of that resonates from those early days.
Yeah, I haven't heard of many people using nylon. Great. Because it has to be a huge sound difference in between both of them. Definitely more softer and all that.
Yeah, definitely more on the acoustic finger picking, like jazz or Hawaiian style guitar players still pick up in nylon periodically. It's much harder to perform with. Typically, they're not. There's no pickups in them. Typically, you have to microphone them and be in a pretty quiet room.
Yeah, that definitely would be hard to go and actually try to perform live there. But sort of leading from there, so who was the biggest influence, one of the mainstream musicians that along your road you idolized?
Yeah, good question. Growing up, my favorite band was called the Tragically Hip out of Kingston, Ontario, and the lead singer is Gordon Downey, and they're in the Canadian Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That was kind of my first, I'd say band that I geeked out on, perhaps, but more in the vein of what I do as an acoustic singer-songwriter. I definitely go through phases, I would say, with other singer-songwriters, and so early on, for my more mainstream name, influence would be guys like Bob Dylan and Neil Young, John Prine, Johnny Cash, John Hyatt, guys like that. And I'll kind of even now into my more elder statesman days, if you will, I still kind of rotate, and I'll go through a month where I'll listen to a lot of Tom Petty or a lot of Bruce Springsteen or a lot of Gillian Welch, and just kind of, volley back and forth to, just geek out on their songs and kind of study their styles a little bit and just enjoy their artistry.
No, it's definitely has some related influences because I was big on Petty. My grandmother was really big on Neil Young, which listening to everything off your album, she would probably love. In that, so that's why I was sort of trying to look through your website, but not necessarily. When I was listening to your whole album and sort of seeing if I could figure out the influences in it, and I sort of thought I could hear a little sense of Petty and so on. So that sort of just reassures my.
I appreciate that. For Lantern Shade, I definitely leaned on Tom Petty's Wildflowers for both my my recording engineer, Bruce Turgan, and I definitely listened to that album several times for kind of some of the stylings. I don't know if I necessarily wrote it with Petty in mind, but his passing was relatively fresh too. Yeah. And, I'd watched some documentaries around that time when he passed away. And one of my favorite quotes from Petty was, "Don't bore us, get to the chorus." And I tried to be a little more, have a little more structure relevant to that on this album than some of my past projects.
I was blanking on the song because it's like it sort of has like a little taste of a song, but I was blanking on the name in that. So thank you for answering that because I was sort of driving myself nuts on that. So you sort of was going through and that, looking at like the whole names of like every song he wrote. It's like, I don't know. Give it a little bit, go back again. It's like, what is it? So you finally just answer my one thing I was sort of trying to figure out for a long period of time.
Right on.
So off of that, sort of one of my secret ones so if you could perform or play with anyone that inspires you as a musician, who would that be?
Wow. That's a great question. Let's say, you didn't say alive or dead. And
yeah, you could put your own twist on that one. Everyone asks that. Do you want to be alive or dead? You guys make the call.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to say alive. And my favorite guitar player who would be a joy to sit down and perform with, or sit down and try to write something, would be Mark Knopfler, I think, right now. That's how I would answer that. And another band that my folks instilled in me was Dire Straits, and I really enjoyed what Mark's done as a solo artist, and both with his production and work in movie soundtracks and things like that. He has a great style of guitar playing and writing, and I like his voice cadence and how he structures a song. I think it would be that would be an honor if that were ever a reality.
You never know. Trust me, it'll be a few other ones that will sort of, if you think that's sort of a unique sort of question, there's a few more coming.
Excellent.
Not including one that will actually really make you think. But to that point, so let's go and jump over to one of your tracks for the listeners. You have a preference on which one you want to play?
Let's play the first track off the new album called Stardust Saltwater.
Let me pull that up. And here we go. It's a local music spotlight here on Lake Effect Radio. Jonathan Foster, Stardust, Saltwater.
Well, she walks like a pixie, talks like a ghost. She must feel so lonely, driving alone, but her sundress is flowing, her hat of gold, a perfect day planned with nowhere to go. Stardust, salt water, someone, son or daughter. So I hit the last side, no lottery winnings, just karma points. With summer storms passing and we'll light a fire, tell stories of good times, echoes and pine needles dance in the skies. Stardust, salt water, someone's son or daughter. Stardust, salt water, someone's son or daughter. And what I know and believe to be true is I'm living enlightened insanity, like there's 500 KVs making your teeth bleed. Stardust and salt water eternity. Stardust, salt water, someone's son or daughter. Stardust, salt water, someone's son or daughter. And I am the richest person you know. I'm a privilege of wonder, like silver or gold. Never feeling so small to the canyon's walls. Drum roll of thunder. The smell of the forest, the sound of the stream. Sleep like a baby and eat like a king. There is no better place in the whole world to be than up in these mountains, clearing your brain. Stardust, salt water, someone's son or daughter. Stardust, salt water, and someone's son or daughter. Well, he walks like a pixie, talks like he's free. He's ever so lonely, sitting under this tree with his dirty feet soaking his hat of green. A perfect day canceled, still living the dream. Stardust, salt water, someone's son or daughter. Stardust, salt water, someone's son or daughter. And I am the richest person you know. I'm a privilege of wonder, like silver or gold. Never feeling so small to the canyon's wall. Drum roll of thunder.
After sort of listening to that at first, I had to say out of the whole album, because that's the one problem with me. I can't really always pick a favorite, except when it came to sort of Yours. That was sort of that one that always just sort of stood out of the whole album. That would be a clear number one, because always sort of listening to local music, sometimes I could never always just pick that one for that top one. I always get, well, this and this would be my number one, while this and this is my number two. So.
Yeah, I hear you there. Well, thank you. And yeah, it's kind of the song we promoted all of last year, or well, I should say from June to November last year. That was kind of the single off the album with a video, and it's one we pitched to radio for the most part. But yeah, thanks for that. It's a fun tune. It seemed to have reached a lot of folks. I wrote it out in the woods here in the Shasta Trinity National Forest before the first lightning storms came in for our wildfires in the summer of 2020 during the pandemic times.
Yeah. Sort of going from there, sort of with the album, how was the inspiration in creating the songs? Was that sort of like prior to the pandemic? Or sort of a little bit there, then more sort of developed during that?
Yeah, for the most part, 8 out of the 10 songs were written right in the middle of it during that summer of 2020. I recorded one traditional song on there called Shady Grove that I've always appreciated. And then there was one song that I brought in that we had finished about March of right around the time that the virus was taking hold in the United States. And so that was really the only one, or those two were the only ones that I had written or worked on pre-pandemic. And so there is a lot of influence between having that be the first year I had all my shows shut down. And of course we were, in the unknown land of what the virus was going to do. And then it was an election year. And of course we had a number of civil unrest situations going on around our country and outside the country as well. And so it's kind of the perfect recipe for a lot of songwriters, I think. And as a result of not playing shows, I definitely spent a lot of time writing, reflecting, and spent a lot of time outdoors, camping and hiking and fishing, trying to figure things out. And so the songs came together as quickly as they ever have for a project that I worked on. So I don't usually call it the pandemic album or a concept album, but you can definitely hear, I think you can hear traces of that year in particular. But I tried to make it so that it was broader and, maybe for the listener can attach some of their own situations and their own thoughts and memories to certain aspects of those different events that I just referenced.
Yeah. I was sort of, like when I listened to All, I was sort of wondering with like Shady and Stardust if that was like prior or not. But then it was, what was it? Which one was it? That was sort of like 3 out of the 10 that I thought was like prior in that.
Yeah, the one that the one that I brought in that finished just before the pandemic was Where We Belong, which is the last track on the album. And that was written I co-wrote it with some friends, and it's for a friend of ours that had passed away 2 summers prior to that. Our friend Kelly was in an accident up here.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. She was a great lady.
No, I understand. It's many. Coming from someone going in their senior year that lost somebody by just a random freak accident. No, I understand that. Mm-hmm. It was hard to play football that whole year and that. No, I understand. But besides sort of this album, so how does your normal creative process in developing songs or albums sort of go? Does it sort of go I come up with the melody, sort of the lyrics, or sort of both sometimes?
Yeah, a lot in the past I've primarily started as lyrics and ideas out of words, but I've tried to morph that a little bit, and so like more in the last couple of years, I have written a lot of melodies independently and trying to work on riffs more. But for the most part, though, I'm the lyricist first, and I can kind of tease melodies out of how I want things to sound or rhyme. And then the other side of it is I'm always jotting down notes, whether it's in my journal or onto my phone or dictation. And I've never had a problem where, like, you know, thinking of song ideas, or, you know, I want to be able to, you know, write or sing or perform a song about X, Y, Z. I've always had those in the back of my brain, especially if you're performing the same songs night after night, and you're like, I need some more diversity, or I need a song about, I don't know, dinner time. Maybe it's time to write a song about food. But yeah, so for the most part in the past, it's usually lyrics first, but not always. And with the new stuff I'm working on, for the first time, I have a stable of melody ideas transcribed, and that hasn't always happened. So I'm excited to see where that goes, and to work on in some different keys and maybe tunings as well that I haven't normally gone into that direction. I also like working with other people. It's a good challenge to co-write and to sit down with a blank piece of paper and some instruments and try to work on stuff too. So, you know, this is kind of the off season a little bit before shows start kicking into high gear, and so it's good to try to connect with some of our pals to try to get some new stuff brewing.
I gotcha. That's kind of funny because I was going, so like, what do you do? A lot of collaboration with like other artists?
Some, you know, I'm primarily a solo artist these days, and so when I hit the road, I'm on my own. But out here, I live in Redding, California these days, and so there's a great network of friend musicians that I have that we've co-written in the past, and I work in a great studio here called After Hours Recorders, and with I think I mentioned Bruce, and he's a multi-instrumentalist and bass player as well. And so, you know, with that networking, it's kind of fun to, you know, I'm able to perform with, you know, duo or trio sometimes more regionally. And then, you know, like I said, in the past, I think I've probably published, you know, a dozen songs that I've co-written with my local friends here.
Okay. Just a curiosity. So does Bruce sort of do some of like the layering of like different instruments, not tracks, instruments in your songs?
Yeah, sometimes. For the most part, though, I like to have, you know, so like we just listened to Stardust, Saltwater, and Bruce is playing bass. My buddy Joe Michal is playing drums, and he lives in Syracuse, New York, and so he does all the recording for my drum work for the last bit remotely, and we fly those in. And then my buddy Morgan Hannaford has provided a lot of mandolin and upright bass work in the past with me, and then so it's a little different. Each song gets treated a little differently, but yeah, Bruce is able to do some, you know, keys and piano and bass playing, and he's kind of the engineering program, you know, glue all the recording the mixes together. And but I try to keep it organic and real. We're not doing, you know, drum tracking or orchestra stuff in the background at this point anyway, but try to keep it based on to my, you know, songwriting of how I would play when I'm creating it or performing it is the bass line of the recordings. But as you can tell, you know, from the recordings, it's more of a full band sound compared to what my live show, which typically is, you know, solo acoustic singer-songwriter type.
No, I understand that. That's amazing though. Because I would have never have thought, especially like sort of like the drums and that, I would have never thought that was sort of recorded, then sort of flown into in that. Damn. That's impressive.
Technology's come a long way, so yeah, you can have your all your band in different states and be able to work on, the same tracking. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, that sounded like that was like in the studio. That was pretty damn impressive then.
Yeah.
You definitely fooled me on that one. But so you want to slide over to another track of yours?
Yeah. How about the second track, Alpine Line?
And here we go. It's a local music spotlight on Lake Effect Radio. Jonathan Foster, Alpine Line.
Heading down the Alpine Line, mountain mama, I need to find. Leave all your cares and troubles behind. Going down the Alpine Line. Going where the summer winds don't blow. Going where to free my soul. Going where my clothes fit just so. I'm going down the Alpine Line. Leaving for to clear my mind. Gotta find a place to unwind. Sing for your supper, sing for your sleep. Sing it down the Alpine Line. Heading down the Alpine Line, mountain mama, I need to find. Leave all your cares and troubles behind. Going down the Alpine Line. Hey, mister, how do I get there? Gotta find me a sweetie who cares. I know she's my baby and I'll treat her kind. Going down the Alpine Line. I'll take a little cheese and wine. Find a blanket, some fishing line. And that old canteen full of water so sweet. Heading down the Alpine Line. Heading down the Alpine Line. Mountain mama, I need to find. Leave all your cares and troubles behind. Going down the Alpine Line. Find a pretty flower to call mine. It's back to the mountain climb. All I got is all I need. Going down the Alpine Line. I'll take a little cheese and wine. Find a blanket, some fishing line. That old canteen for the water so sweet. Heading down the Alpine Line.
Yes, we do have the world's most small studio audience. We had to make sure they're small because of, the whole pandemic thing, but we're doing the best we can. So, it's going to sort of sound backwards, but, so if you were a mainstream act, you could have anyone perform for you or open for you, who would it be?
That's a great question. I think I'd have my pals. It's a band out of Portland called Mida, and I have some of her artwork right here behind me, and they just finished up their spring tour. They're on Kill Rock Stars Records record label there, and they're out of Portland, and MAITA. And so when I get that big hit and that big tour around the country, we'll have them open up a show.
Very nice. I know many people at first they hear that and say, "Oh my God, this is so backwards."
That's good. That's a good question.
I know it sort of keeps everyone on their toes, right?
Exactly. I like it.
So with now that sort of going into this spring summer season. Do you have any shows sort of lined up?
Yeah. I'm excited to get back out on the road. I have a short spring tour coming up in April that is just in 3 Western states, so California, Nevada, and Oregon. And so I have, a dozen shows in April coming up real quick, coming faster than I can keep track of. But that's a shorty. And then I'll be on the road June through September on a large cross-country summer tour again. And that's about 70% lined up. We're still working on finishing off the end of that tour. But Ohio is up next in the booking process. So I'm looking forward to getting back to the Great Lakes region. And I think we have, 50 shows on the books or so far for the summer. And then
that's impressive.
Yeah. And then with any luck, and if I don't need an electric vehicle by the fall, we're contracted to do a fall tour as well, but it's unclear where we'll be going. It might be out west again. Not positive, but at this point, I will be on the east side of the Mississippi for a good chunk of the summer, at least.
Oh, cool. I definitely have to keep an eye out with the whole Ohio thing.
Yeah, I'll definitely let you guys know.
And see what I can sort of work out. Definitely would be interested. But yeah, I understand the reservations, especially right now with gas prices. Or you need to go in and vet the transporter.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
If you're really bored.
a hologram in your local radio station and pub.
Yeah. It's either that, yeah. Or the whole, transport in time, yeah. We'll see what happens first. So, to be continued. Or, depending, we could go throw a patent on it so someone creates it, then we can make a lot of money.
That would work. Yeah. The lake effect vortex.
That sounds official. I like it. So, with that, what would be let me take that back. So, what would be your favorite venue to play at?
What would be, or what is my?
Or what is?
Yeah. It's a good question. I have a lot of places I enjoy stopping at and playing at. Probably a place that I typically reference when fans ask me at the end of trips usually comes back to either my hometown, because the people that I get to see. But as an official venue, I would say the Purple Fiddle in Thomas, West Virginia. I always reference as the Big Rock Candy Mountain stop on some of my past tours, and it's in the mountains. It's part of the Appalachian Music Trail, and it's just a really cool spot. They have music most days of the week, and in the summertime they have the ice cream going in the restaurant, and usually 2 or 3 acts a day, and it's just a really cool part of the mountains, and it's always a really good vibe there.
It's kind of because not even a little over a week ago, I was actually going through Virginia, I was actually went down to Myrtle Beach on vacation that I actually sort of seen a sign for that place.
Oh, no kidding.
Except it was sort of way off. I didn't actually go past it, but yeah, I went past the sign around there for it. It's kind of funny. Small universe.
Indeed, yeah. But yeah, what's cool about, you know, playing the small venue circuit is getting to see some of these amazing places that have great history of having, you know, touring acts come through, and in small towns especially, have these little diamonds in the rough like that.
Yeah, most definitely. So a little twist from there. So if you could play at any venue in the world, where would it be?
That's a really good question. I was just thinking about Machu Picchu the other day. And I don't think that's typically I don't know if that would be considered a venue, but you know, there's easy answers like the Ryman or the Fillmore, but I think if you know, for what I do, and if it was ever obtainable, it'd probably be Red Rocks there in Morrison, Colorado. It's a really beautiful backdrop and just an incredible venue, both for the outdoor aesthetics, and they have top-notch sound and stage and venue production there. That would be a wild dream come true, I suppose.
It's a lot of people in Ohio that actually have your same dream too. A lot of ours are like singer-songwriters, some bands. That's sort of theirs.
Yeah.
And that I sort of seen pictures, but yeah, like me, the first time I actually got out of the state of Ohio in about 10 years was down to South Carolina. So eventually, maybe I'll make my way to actually see Red Rocks. Like everyone either sort of seen on pictures or were there and loved it. That's sort of on my bucket list after listening to you guys.
Nice. Yeah, it's worth the trek. It's quite amazing. So yeah, when you take your next vacation in 10 years, find a show you want to see and book your flight. Yeah. Take a nice drive.
So where you at? Since you are closer than like many people, have you ever been to Red Rocks?
I have, yeah. And I had a show that night in Morrison, the town where the venue is, not at the amphitheater, obviously. So I didn't get to see the show. It was Devotchka was playing that night, and I was in a pub in the little downtown, the little historic town of Morrison there, and but I got to take a hike, a walk, but pre-show walk I like to do, and so I got to walk around the perimeter and see the venue, and there's a great statue of John Denver outside with an eagle and his guitar. It's pretty wild, and then there were rattlesnakes. I saw a couple rattlesnakes on the trail. So it's pretty wild country there, and but beautiful aesthetics, and you know, kind of the beginning of the Rocky Mountains when you're coming from the east.
Okay. I'll definitely have to put it on my list of things to do at some point in time. But you want to jump over to another track of yours?
Certainly. How about When It Gets Dark?
Okay.
I think that's the 7th or 8th track. I don't have the CD right in front of me.
I have it. Oh, that's over on the wall near me. I will check when I get this to play right now.
It's a local music spotlight here on Lake Effect Radio. Jonathan Foster, When It Gets Dark.
When it gets dark, that's when the problems start. When it gets dark, that's when I steal your hearts. Well, I'm moving to Buffalo, further away than any place I know. Yeah, I'm moving to Buffalo. A friend there gonna keep me warm. Yeah, I'm moving in real time. The rest of the world will be just fine. Yeah, I'm moving in light years. Stave off all my falling tears. 'Cause when it gets dark, that's when the problems start. And when it gets dark, that's when I steal your hearts. And when it gets dark, that's when we all feel so smart. When it gets dark, that's when my problems start. So come and join me in Buffalo, and we'll keep you warm from the snow. I got a favor to ask you. Let's take the train to Alaska. And by the time that we get there, we'll need to give some cash to the bears. That way we can stand tall and go and swim with all the narwhal. 'Cause when it gets dark, that's when the problems start. And when it gets dark, that's when I steal your hearts. And when it gets dark, that's when we all feel so smart. But when it gets dark, that's when my problems start. And when we dry off the icicles, we'll need to go and rent 2 red bicycles. And hey, did you remember the map? Otherwise we'll never find our way back. No, did you remember the map? It's the only thing I asked, and that's a fact. Not all who wander are lost, but in this case, we're so lost. When it gets dark, that's when the problems start. But when it gets dark, that's when I steal your hearts. And when it gets dark, that's when we all feel so smart. But when it gets dark, that's when my problems start. And then we're going to Iceland and Greenland in the Black Forest by the Yellow River. And then we're going to the Blue Bayou in the Emerald Triangle to Timbuktu. You see, when it gets dark, you have to remember there's still 25% of unaccounted light out there in the universe. Well, that's a lot of light. Man, oh day. 'Cause when it gets dark,
You called it. It was 7. Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry. Number 7.
Yep. Yeah, you called it.
Okay.
I thought we lost connection there. But yeah, you called it. It was 7.
Excellent.
So, what's your favorite part of being a musician?
Yeah, I consider music my artistry, and so I like the creation from the ground up. I'm not a trained musician, and I'm not a trained songwriter, and I don't write music in the traditional sense of writing bars and notes out longhand. And so my favorite part is just kind of creating something out of nothing in a sense. And I try to keep, somewhat unique to my style, if you will. As, I don't know, cheesy as it might sound, but that's kind of my favorite thing. Is I've been writing and playing my own songs for about almost 25 years now, and I still get just a kick out of when a song comes together and I'm happy with it and I want to play it and share it with folks, and then there's resonation from other people back. That's what it's all about for me. And I don't know how to explain it complicated, but that's simple terms, I suppose.
No, that's simple. It's not completely cheesy. It's staying humble to your roots.
Yeah, thank you.
So, but yeah, that is the simplest way. Because I know some of the times how I sort of put questions together, I know it's sort of hard every once in a while to figure out the best way of sort of putting it together, the answers to them. So, not including like, it's that thing of you sort of do some basic, sort of like similar like questions that we sort of do, but being unique and find some things, that many other people don't do. But no, I get it. So, from there, from a year from today, what do you want to accomplish as a singer-songwriter?
Yeah, well, hopefully by this time next year, I will be working on releasing another album, perhaps. And so that we could be in the middle of that. Decisions definitely have to be made between now and then on a new project. Right now, I'm looking at just releasing singles this year. And so I have a new song coming out next month called The Mountain Echo. And also decisions have to be made soon on, what touring is going to be like for next year too. But to answer the question, I would say I hope I'm looking at new music and new opportunities and keep the proverbial train rolling.
And that's all we could hope for.
Yeah, I don't have dreams of giant grandeur anymore, but I get more opportunities than I ever dreamed of getting. And so, I take my lumps, but I also enjoy the carrots when they happen too. And I'm just always grateful that I get to do this because you never know when it's going to stop.
Nope, I definitely understand that. Every once in a while, it's the good days, there's the great days, and there are the bad days. Whether it's as a musician, whether as, it's sort of just, that's how our industry is.
Indeed.
And that, so you just hope that, like, at least the bad days are like 10% of the time. So, am I right or am I right?
You're right.
It's like everyone, what we hope for. So,
yeah.
From there, let's say, from 5 years, what are you hoping to accomplish by then?
Yeah, I mean, you always want things to get easier, and bigger opportunities. It's really hard to, as an artist, and I've this will be about my 10th year doing cross country, self-sustaining independent touring and releases of new music, and so you just want to continue to grow and have more helping hands out there. And so in 5 years, if I'm still rolling this this hard into my products, you want to take that next step up into the what gets referred to as the journeyman land of independent songwriters and touring musicians, I suppose, and just have more assistance, more help in doing bigger things, and whether that's getting songs placed or having bigger tour or venue opportunities or relationships. And I've never performed officially out of the country, and see where things go, but that would always be something, somewhat of a dream, and that could be more of a reality if there's regular opportunities in 5 years to do overseas work. But it's hard for me to do the crystal ball thing like that, but I just hope to be around and keep making music in 5 years, I suppose.
I get it. It's how do I best say it? It's sort of that thing of, in an unperfect world that you necessarily don't know what will completely happen, it is to have dreams, but to sort of keep pace and just keep doing the simple things. If great things do happen, all power to it, all great. Well, I get it. Sort of lamest terms. But I sort of do that for the one aspect of everyone sort of has dreams to sort of have it as sort of like a memento of 5 years from now that you could always go back and say, hey, I accomplished these things that I wasn't sure of, but that it became a thing.
Yeah.
So that's a cool thing, is that some people, that's actually been a thing of, they go back 5 years from now, then they go back and look at something like this and say, oh, well, we didn't get everything, but we did this. And they shoot a message, hey, and sort of just like that cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just sort of like doing that.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, one of my sort of one questions of, if you would tour or play out of the, country or around the world, where would you want to be or go?
Yeah, some of my family lineages have been sprouting up more, and there's one side doing family tree things, and we've done the online ancestry deal, and so out of all that, I'm 82% Irish and Scottish from the DNA testing, and so I figured, well, someday I've got to do that. The British Isles, and specifically Ireland and Scotland, I think would be a really cool adventure into sharing my style of folk music to the folks there.
Well, fair enough. Especially because I've heard, at least from what I heard, that sort of like over there, they're very acceptive of, let's say, like American musicians and that, whether It's always sort of seems like that. Or what would be like the west side of Europe. That's always sort of been a big thing. I haven't done my own research on it, but many people actually have said that.
Yeah, definitely hear the same thing. And some of my friends that have had the opportunity to do it have said great things about touring Europe.
So that's a very good, especially good start off too. If you're going to go anywhere, that would be a good start off to go and venture out, go there for a first time being out of a United States plane.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So, you want me to jump over to one more track for you?
Sure. How about the last tune on the record called Where We Belong?
Okay.
It's a local music spotlight here on Lake Effect Radio. Jonathan Foster, Where We Belong.
Who we've become, why not forever young? Where we've gone, always longing for the sun. And what we're left with, tiny sand messages. When we shed a little light, we'll never be wrong. This is where we belong. Remember her red hair, don't care, downtown, turning frowns upside down. It's all messed up, all our thoughts. There's no better place than where you are. Wiping our eyes in our hearts, so full of life, always the spark. And this is where we belong. This is where we belong. Like a spider monkey shouting out loud, jumping onto the unsuspecting crowd. Proud of love of mama's big dreams, dancing all along the winding streams. Folk, sister, ghostly prankster, armed with all the cold beverages. Mister, this is where we belong. This is where we belong. Now the pink-stained streets of this red town, like a firecracker, it all broke down. Never ever try to put out a spark with whiskey after dark. But you're always in our hearts, Kelly Clark. We left the pub through the side gate for another drink across the way. One last cast into the night, she tied us all together with her light. Now she must be making fun, still being so fit and young, and knowing this is where we belong. This is where we belong. This is where we belong. This is where we belong.
Very nice.
Love the applause.
Yeah, I know. We definitely in the studio had to be a little bit more independent now with the whole COVID thing that we had to finally adopt in a small studio audience. Whoever thought that would become a thing now?
Right.
Never thought of that before until, bam. Well, now what do we do? Okay. Things happen, but it is what it is. So, with that so how is the music scene and curiosity out there in California?
Yeah, well, I've lived in just over 20 years. I've lived in Northern California now. I grew up in Northern New York State for the time prior to that. But yeah, I've been involved with the local and regional music scene for quite some time now. And it's vastly diverse. We have I live in a city of 90,000 people, and then we have some surrounding communities that have venues and bands and musicians all over Northern California here. So there's a rich, it's kind of a young state in a sense, the West, a little younger than the Northeast. But there is a rich history of music in these parts from the 60s San Francisco days to the Bakersfield sound of country music, and then into maybe more of the hippie culture into the Northern California coastal area too, in Southern Oregon. But here directly we have, there's still an aspect of everything from the orchestra to we have a community college that has a lot of music going on. And then we have the open mic scene, we have the old time fiddlers, we have a jazz scene, we have the blues society, we have a lot of classic rock, club bands, and then we have the singer-songwriter types and probably everything in between. And it was a large generational gap too. Sometimes we have folks in their older ages, and then younger folks doing more modern things too. But I'm able to kind of navigate in and out. I have some regular gigs here, both in Redding and regionally, that I'm always thankful for, and a lot of great musicians that I get to partner with on things. And then we try to get out and about as much as we can to keep things fresh and see what else is going on in other cities too. And so, we're kind of not too far from Reno, Nevada, and Portland, Oregon, and San Francisco and Sacramento, Lake Tahoe area. And so it's really neat to see both beautiful places and see a lot of different art scenes and music scenes too, not too far from us.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I never heard much about fiddling, at least out east and that. I was just curious with what's the differential between ours and sort of that direction. But that's true. Yours are in that perfect market of where you're at, in between the major cities. Huh. Do you sort of prefer more the California scene over the others, or they're sort of all they're about the same?
There's definitely a thread, I think, around the country of similarities on different places you go, and cities versus more rural or smaller cities. But there are definitely states that have their own flavor, I would say, and they're both in their own pride as states and maybe pride in their music scenes that, I would say, some of the bigger scenes the Texas or Austin music scene versus Tennessee versus Colorado versus California versus Cleveland or New York. There's what's fantastic is there's different flavors everywhere you go, and even, in between cities. So, Memphis and Nashville is a great example south of you there. Completely different music scenes in the same state. And so I like diversity. I like, seeing how people, produce their shows, both as a venue and bands, differently in different places. I try to, be a sponge on some of that to say, what works and what doesn't, both for me as a performer and artist, but to try to maybe bring some of that on the road with me or back home with me too. But yeah, where I grew
trial and error. No, I gotcha.
Yeah. But I like to, I grew up in northern New York, not super close to Lake Ontario, but I've always considered, where I grew up, kind of the Great Lakes region. I appreciate traveling around the Great Lakes area, states and areas, and there is a difference, I would say, for where I am and how music and art is both produced and offered and received back there versus here. But it's just different. It's not, I don't call it I really like it here or there one way or another. I just try to gecko myself and fitting in anywhere I can, anywhere I'll be hosted for that matter.
No, I gotcha. It was just, sort of that curiosity of like the differences, and you sort of prefer a little one that, or they're sort of like, neutral, but they're, this is just a touch different than this one, what it sort of offers,
Yeah. I can see myself, getting back that way someday, for sure. But for now, I'm very fortunate that I do get to travel around, and but when I'm back here, it is nice to have a somewhat any kind of scene, because not everybody gets to live in a major scene or anything like that. And I don't know how I'd fit into a major scene. I've never really had that experience, but it's it's kind of nice to be in a
or even those little small, even smaller, like 100 miles away from the nearest city.
Yeah.
No, I definitely feel for people like that.
Yeah, only like one venue.
Yeah, and they only have musical acts, every like Saturday, Sunday or something, or like Friday, Saturday. In that, then you might play there, like once a month, because it's like a few other people they drag in too. No, completely understand that there, but I sort of have no more questions for you at the moment. But besides off of your website, if anyone wants to check out sort of your new album, or if you're going to do singles this year or another album in that, where should they go?
Yeah, you can find me pretty much anywhere where you listen to music. So besides the website is, all my recordings are on Bandcamp, and everything is under my name, Jonathan Foster. And but for folks that like to stream or do the radio, or I'm on YouTube and social media stuff, and then you can track for you can join the email list, which I do notifications each month for shows coming up or new songs or videos coming out. And then otherwise, you can find my tour schedule too on Bands in Town or Songkick or Facebook events as well. And I think there's some upwards of 70 shows on the books so far for the year that are that have been announced so far too.
You definitely got a busy year ahead of you.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It's
But it's been too quiet, so you got to go and sort of let the bag or let the cat out of the bag.
yeah, it'll be good to get rolling again.
And that. But I'll say that I appreciate you for coming on. It's been definitely a great chat. Definitely learned a few new things that I was sort of wondering about your album, not including, sort of reassured a few things I was sort of thinking. So, definitely, it's been a good time.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Jeremiah. I really appreciate the support, and thanks for getting into my tunes too.
Oh, no. Well, that's if you do, or give me 1 second. I'm going to stop this.